Good morning and good evening, team. Thanks for joining the session. Today, we're going to cover Security Review Directorate, briefing, responsibilities, how SRD started, what was the trigger for it, and also the Security Review Directorate learning, which Osman is going to do in the second half of the session. The punchline, we want all of you and whole of our org to be the security focused eyes and ears. It's not one person's responsibility. All of us need to put the security hat. Agenda. Today we'll be covering mostly on security compliance process which was existing till date. The summary of gaps, what triggered us to get to the birth of Security Review Directorate, its responsibilities, and where we stand today with respect to execution, more so from a sustenance model. Putting a process in one release and unable to sustain will not help us to scale. So we want to put a sustainable model right with respect to SRD. Security compliance process started in 701 and it came in from Jonathan's level STO insisting that XR has to become security compliance, and it started as an initiative. There was a
Bonita, sorry to interrupt. Looks like there is a pop-up in your right corner, which is blocking something.
Is this fine?
Still on the presentation, on the bottom right, we are not able to see the contents. Yeah.
1 minute. Tell me if it goes.
Maybe your calendar Outlook or meeting pop-up.
Yes.
Yeah, that might be there.
1 minute. I'm just trying to remote. Is this okay now?
No, it's still there, but it's okay. You can proceed.
Oh, sorry about it. I'm unable to see. I just disabled also. In case it's really disturbing, let me know. I can just close the Outlook and disable it again. Yeah. Okay. Security compliance process. It started with 701, where a standardized CSDL process was created by PE security advocates and STO team SMEs to review PSPs and categorize them into PI, PD, and hardware. CSER project was created for all platforms. Threat models were defined, which is most important aspect for security compliance, either in EDC as a threat builder tool. and 90% PSP compliance and 100% of critical PSP compliance were met. This was in 701. Few platforms took a waiver like ASA 9K, CXR, CRS, Skywarp. Few of these took a waiver, which was also agreed upon at the release level. Post this review, what triggered? 701 was completely compliance and it continued that way running CSDL, part of it for 721, 711, and review process was done. With this compliance, Spitfire being a platform, with this compliance Spitfire, there was ASIC team which was taken. ASIC is a part of a STO team which had to meet the process. They did the testing on Spitfire platform and identified some gaps. So for the outside world, you can view ASIC as ethical hacker team. ASIC is Advanced Security InfoSec Group, which is part of a STO stream, and they identified around 40 plus issues on a 90% compliance platform, that is Spitfire. This made us go back on to review the gaps, what is required today, though we are 90% compliance. There was a study done for Spitfire, lint readiness. There's also threat models which were reviewed. Corona tool generated reports were reviewed. ASIC bugs were analyzed in detail, and also testing tools and test cases were reviewed. After this gap analysis, these were the identified gaps post this analysis. We have bucketized that into three parts. One is the process improvement required. Second is the XR hardening required in the area, testing and tools area. So in the process required, important one is security expertise has to be built across the team. Awareness of security is important. Security considerations has to be done in every software functional spec what we go out per release. And threat model for BMC was shallow. This is currently so too. And there are discussions to go and deprecate BMC in Spitfire platform. BMC is applicable only to Spitfire today. From the XR hardening area, high-level areas where OS hardening is required, we have some legacy design where XR users can have connect with the root privileges. There's some IPC and ports which are not secured, and there lacks some infrastructure, especially when we have to store the data on boot and report it. For the process, we also saw security and robustness consideration was required. Testing and tool, important drawback we see is there is no penetration test done in XR per release today, which is done by the ASIG team. With respect to process, there are threat models defined, but these are never revised. Example, Spitfire threat model was completed in 2017, product was released in 2020, which means the feature additions which went through the development cycle didn't have a revision of threat model. And third-party app hosting needs to have much more secure ways. These were the gaps identified, and there were some recommendations given. So the first and foremost recommendation is what I'm going to cover in detail in the coming forward slides is Security Review Directorate team and champions. And other than that, we also had other testing considerations, threat model consideration, what are the security and PSP validation required. With respect to security, a directorate team and champions, there is a security core team and champions formed. We have also defined security review process, responsibilities of core team, roles and responsibilities of champions, and overall security process for MIG. And it is put at EC level so that this becomes a gating factor right from EC, CC to the FCS. Each of these recommendation itself will have a discussion for an R plus. So I'll just touch upon what areas were recommended with respect to the software to be uplifted so that we are aware while we are reviewing a functional spec or writing a functional spec, you take care of these considerations going forward. OS hardening has gaps which are identified here. SE Linux, IMA enforcement are mandatory. XR infrastructure needs hardening and enhancement. Secure IPCs we need to have. Secure ZTPs has to be developed. Third-party app hosting, which has become a very flexible solution we are selling to the customer, also needs to ensure that it is devised in a secure manner. Testing tools have to be enhanced. Today, Corona tool generates a report which is a 32-bit data, and it is difficult to go and deduce a direct outcome. It needs analysis. A 32-bit data has to be untarred. So the output itself is quite tedious what the tool gives. We are trying to work with STO team to simplify that. In the meantime, it is taking around a week or 2 to 3 days to just go and analyze the report post validation and then triage to see which files are not meeting the requirement. There are some gaps in tools. Today, there is no tool to go and even test BMC. And ASIC team vulnerabilities were predominantly in BMC area of Spitfire. So with knowing these were the recommendations, two action plans, important action plans categorized. One is process improvement, other is a technical roadmap. Process improvement, which helps us to sustain it release over release, is more important because it cannot be one time. The technical roadmap is what we get into our function right from our functional spec and eventually gets into our DNA. So in the process, we have SRD, CSDL enforcement, SRD learning system, which is what Osman will cover. We are also driving this with a lot of passion to ensure we expand the learning across the org. Osman and Subbu are black belts in our organization already. We also have Samir, who's a black belt. They are helping us along with me partnering, driving this learning stream. Technical roadmap, like we discussed, this is more of summary on threat model, OS uplift, we need XR infrastructure tools. So what is Security Review Directorate? This can be viewed as a group which consists of security advocates, security officers, selected individual people who are chosen with the technical knowledge in security. It also has our experts. Some people are even helping, they interact with STO teams, whom we also call it as virtually part of Security Review Directorate team. They are from STO team, like David Lapierre's team. And in-house, we have these experts who have created and formed a Security Review Directorate team. It consists of core team, it has an overseer, and the executors who are our security advisors and officers. And this is expected per platform. So we will have a platform specific security officer, then platform independent infra, which here we have Samir, Shweta, Suresh from PI, NA, Jabir, all of these folks also looking at the complete platform independent infra. They ensure the review is done. They act as more of overlooking the complete security process. Then representation from each PD is important. So each platform will have a security advocate mandatorily who has the expertise required and are also learning to build that expertise. So we have expertise in DNX, 9K, Spitfire, all the platforms, name it, we have the expertise being created and they are become security advocates. This is a SRD team. It has a core team consisting of Shweta, Suresh, Reda, Jabir, Samir, Gopal, then Helios, Zayode, and Osman. In the overseer team, it is led by Mohana, Shaila, myself, Gaurav, and Prasad. There's also PMO team because they have to help us with the release to do all the program management role for getting this part of our release track that will be done by Ram TM and Salman. They also help, all of the PMs are mandated to help ensure that the PSP compliance or the security compliance for that platform is in the hand of the program manager who is driving that platform. For example, DNX is Rakesh, Optical is Archana. So they reach out, they ensure it is done at their level and then provide a summary to Ram and Ram drives it at the org level. What are the responsibilities? This slide is too much of info, but I had to put it here. Reason is each point we had put some thought to it and got it. So I'll not cover in detail. I'll go over the summary of the expectation. Security core team will have all the approvals, exceptions, and the XR related to security, and they have to mandatorily review it. So any CI report, PSPs which need analysis, working with the STO team, getting more details is with the hands of security core team. They act as consultants and guides to the pool of reviewers. They set up security test guidelines also and own PI, platform independent threat model, and SI. The platform independent models are huge and they are applicable to all PD platforms. So based on analysis, what I have seen is these are around 100 to 120 in Lint and EXR specifically. Then identify weakness in XR and recommend a process for hardening. They also have the capacity to go and stop the release if a platform is not meeting the compliance. Overseer has the directors and the managers part of this, and we have to ensure that there is reviews are assigned, threat models, compliance reports are coming on time. Any blockages which we can unblock the teams to ensure this is achievable has to be done by the overseers. Smooth functioning of the directorate, setting up the means for it through WebEx teams or mailing results, and working with them on the technical aspect is what overseers have to help on. Platform security officers are the executors. They own and drive PSP compliance for the platform. They submit the threat model report created in the CServe. Compliance reports have to be done by them. Our program managers help to keep the gates further in the development cycle. This slide was put up so we clearly know what is the expectation right from concept commit to FCS. The yellow ones are applicable to the NPIs, blue one is applicable to the release, and white colors are applicable both across release and the NPI. So at concept commit, we need to identify which platforms need to be part of this release and have to be security compliant. Any platform going out of the release has to be security compliant. Hardware and software threat models for the NPI have to be defined. At execution commit, for the NPI, PSP list has to be identified and scoped. And at the design phase, if you look at it, we expect all the PSPs, SRCs applicable to a platform to be available, reviewed and available. And also category has to be put in. Is it PI? It is PD or PI/PD. That way it is easy for test teams going and picking up to go and execute it. Development test team, these are the executors. They have to come up with a master test plan for all the PI compliance. PD would be done as per the platform requirement, and PD specific PSPs are not much based on the analysis. The fourth point, a SIG and pen team engagement is still an open item. We are looking at what tools are used by a SIG team and to get some thoughts and also on the head count of it. This is not yet closed. System test, what expectation is to close all the testing by system test end and then review the gating, the SI reports that is meeting the criteria and the quality required. And at the FCSRR, review all the NPI approvals done and it is ready for shipping. Any deviations here, get the shipping little early in the cycle and not towards the end, so that there is some enough room for taking the corrective action. Stop me in between whenever you have doubts or any clarifications. There's a security task force team created as part of the SRD2. We have a core team. We also, in the core team also there is Gopal is the security test representation. Along with that, we have a security task force team who will be executing these PSPs. They are expected to be at least green belt plus advanced belt. Currently, most of them are in green belt. They are pursuing to learn more. Each platform needs to have a security engineer who executes it, understands the expectation, similar to what we are also telling for the functional spec level. They are the ones who own the bottommost table. If we see, that is the expectation of the security test engineer. They own, drive, and execute PSP. They submit the threat models, review technical aspects of it, and identify the PD changes, PI PD changes. Overall, Security Test Task Force also has enhanced team which will have a master test plan created for all PIs, and they conduct and have the authority to escalate and hold a release if it is not meeting. So if there's some important security bug, it cannot be gone and closed without fixing it. So that making it as a DT end must have, SSTS is with hands of these executing team who goes and puts the right attributes. One more sustaining model important thing is automating these gaps so that release over release, we don't spend the same amount of effort. That automation gaps and uplift is also in progress. No, okay, we got to know exactly how the process started in 701, what were the gaps, recommendations, the actions taken as part of one of the recommendation. We have a SRD team and the action. Knowing all this, where we stand today with respect to 741. In 741, we also saw that there's already 90% compliance, which we revisited. After that, there is a major refresh which has happened in the past 6 months by the STO team. So each time STO team goes and refreshes this PSP list, as and when they do it, we need to go pick up the latest versions. So there has been a major refresh which has happened for all projects, and our platforms needs an update of it. Based on this latest compliance, we have fallen down the compliance level to 60%. No more, it is at 90%. As on 741 beginning, it's come down to around 60 to 65%. So a review was done on this compliance where the changes or revisions have gone in. Those three major categories are: threat models have to be updated, automated tests which are there for PSPs have to be enhanced. There was a version 1 existing, now version 2 has come saying that these are the additional steps to be taken. Those have to be enhanced. The applicable PSP list needs revision. So while we go and review this PSP list, see the latest version that we are compatible to and correspondingly take the action, both from dev and test. This is an important criteria to be met. And the first initiative for Security Review Directorate is to bring in 90% of compliance in 741 with quality. We were 90% compliance in 701 also, right? So we have some learning. So with quality is at most important here. And make the compliance sustainable process. So it's not about putting a process in place. How can we sustain it? And both from the execution, we are able to go and make it as a mandatory process. And how are we doing this in 741? Each of these PSPs have got an AHA entry and they have an NTR of 0. So these have to be treated as P0 features and tested. They cannot be overridden by any other features with any other NTR here. That's why they have kept 0 NTR for this. The AHA entries are already created. Dev teams are putting up the applicable PSP list with the categorization of PI/PD. That becomes the entry criteria for the test team. They go pick it up from there, understand the scope, and then have to make the feature go. There's no other option. But before making it go, there is a diligence done to understand both dev and test scope thoroughly. Roll out the exact security process to meet these criteria. This is what is mandated from 741. So there are in 741, I see around 19 platforms which are entered for making it compliance. Based on the looking at the PSP SRCs, both PI and some 4 platforms PDs were picked up to analyze. This is the high level expectation created. There is a satellite team, which is a partner team of 3 engineers created who will help with manual and automation execution of this. So ask for all test managers because they are the executors. Is have provide them the operational support required with respect to hardware, optics, breakouts. Have the technical guidance for them which are specific to PD because these PD PSPs could be in infra area, FPGA, it could be in BMC. BMC is getting deprecated, Linux internal. They will not have the complete expertise in all the areas. So technical guidance is required. Then technical team has to sign off, which has to be one of our FTEs for each platform, along with our security officer signing off the technical team, because any deviations, SRD team would actually look up to these folks to go back and see if some vulnerabilities were missed out from our end. So technical sign off is very important, both from dev and test. Based on this, we put a high level effort required and the expectation. There's some areas which are automated, like Corona tool, Cody is automated, VTP, Fast. Fast is an infrastructure created by STO team. They themselves go and automate few critical PSPs which are agnostic across platforms. So XR also goes, picks that up and leverages, that is Fast. And CAFE. CAFE is our in-house infra for automation. There are scripts automated in these areas. Running them completely and analyzing, it will take around 7 weeks of effort. There are some gaps which needs to be manually covered. That will be in the secure boot area, documentation mapping. Documentation mapping is becoming an important part. Reason is no point dev team or one of the team can go and mark in CSERV as verified compliant. That is completely ruled out now. It has to be in conjunction with both dev and test, which means we have to go and ensure documentation mapping is thoroughly done. It is verified and then only verified compliant is done, just not by logging a documentation bug. Till the bug is resolved, it is a responsibility of both the teams, and then it can be marked as verified compliant. Syslog over TLS, we tried technically looking at it to automate, to reduce the manual effort. Today, Syslog over TLS uses a Windows Server machine to use the TLS path. If this is automated, the pods do not have the Windows Server accessibility. So that being a challenge, if there is an effort put in that area, we won't be able to scale because pods are spread across geography. We are exploring if Linux can be used as a syslog over TLS and how feasible is this as a solution to use it via UCS. If that solution works, the plan is to automate it. Currently, this is a manual effort required. It will be around 2 weeks of effort, and this needs technical guidance both from dev and FTE's test here. Then there will be some PD specific PSPs for each platform. We reviewed 4 platforms. We are yet to review the remaining 12 platforms. It will be around 10 to 15 PSPs. So this execution will take approximately 1.5 weeks of effort. Overall, per platform, making it PSP compliance after the applicable PSP list is there will be around 10 to 11 weeks of effort. How can we achieve it when there are around 18 platforms to be done in 741 alone? There are 3 engineers and it is mandated. So we try doing a parallel execution on single UCS, which has the capability of the number of cores and the hard disk drive space we needed. We went and tried launching parallel runs. 2 runs were feasible without hassles with a higher capacity UCS. Knowing those, we are putting a strategy such that 3 runs can run in parallel for 3 platforms. When say 3 runs, this means 3 platforms can run PSP in parallel is the plan. With 3 partner engineers, 9 is what we are targeting. So if you look at the table on the right side, there is a P0 list made and there's a P1 list made. P0 list are all the platforms which are CC board stable and they are coming release over release. R9Ks, DNX, ASA9K, 560, optical, all of these platforms are P0s. P1s is mostly NPIs and not much code churn platforms. Not much code churn when I say either this we couldn't pull it in the capacity in P0 or it would be more of XRV9 case, which test team wasn't running at all this time. It was driven by development team, or it could be SR9K CXR, which is not that heavy with respect to code churn, NCS6K. Those are the platforms which are marked as P2. P1 are more important because those are NPIs. They need little more effort as the PD threat models would have changed and the testing will take more time. So this validation effort will be more. Based on this plan and the parallel execution, we have put a tentative date. It would start by 9/28. The ask for all the team is ensure that the green ones, which are P0, all the requirements are available upfront in the rally with the details by 9/28. And the satellite partner team will go pick up and start execution by 9/28 and target to complete by 12/21. P1s, which are our NPIs, have the detailed threat model defined and the functional spec updated with all the granular details and what has changed with respect to BIOS, Aikido, any changes clearly put in there so that they start by 1/4 and the plan is to complete by March end. There'll be some challenges here is the Defense 6 Pro and the Defense 6 suite keeps changing, have a new version once in 5 to 6 weeks. There are also fast infra, which comes from STO, will have some versions upgraded on an average of 6 to 7 weeks there. So we also need to keep upgrading that. If we don't pick up, probably some one or two vulnerabilities would be lost. So we need to keep ensuring as and when there is a pop-up of the Git which has got a repository uplift, we go revise it. So there will be some delays with respect to those executions. Keep a watch on those while you plan.
Vanita,
Yeah.
these are the POCs for 73X and 74X. The Nikhil, Lovely, and Koti.
Yeah, these are
Yeah.
okay. Look at 74X, 73X. I put it for test team so that they roll off
Okay.
logically from 73X. Yeah, these are the POCs from the satellite partner team.
Okay, what about the NCS 1K? There are no POCs at all.
The NCS 1K has a separate funding, all of the optical platforms. 1, 2, that is Boss Hog, Mystic, and even the latest, right?
Roscoe.
Acacia-based one, which is Roscoe. Yeah, 1000 is Roscoe. Oh, these three have a separate funding. Sheshan and Suresh Nayar's team will be doing.
Okay. Okay. Oh, thanks.
Any questions on this? Because I'm done. We will go over the SRD learning. Before that, I'll take the questions for the SRD.
I think we can go over to the learning section.
Okay. Osman, shall I continue the slide?
No, I'm gonna share because I want to get rid of this
Sure.
this gray blob. It's it's been annoying me.
Okay. Sure.
All right, let's see. So it's the same slides. All I have is I'm just gonna present from my own desktop, and once you share the slides, it should be the same content. All right. So guys, overall, what I've done is I've put together some thoughts because I thought it would be really prudent to give you guys a perspective on, what's some of the best practices instead of wasting a lot of time or spinning your wheels and trying to figure out how to approach this, right? So I think the end goal is, which is our BU-wide goal, is to have as many people advance through their belt status, right? That's one of our end goals. It does give you bragging rights, but it also builds a lot of learning. So the 4 pillars that we are looking at is forge, teach, research, and implement, because these are all broken down into various components. where you can go and get credit for it, and that basically is used as your belt advancement credit, right? So overall, when we look at the first bullet, which is Forge, right? So this is, I would say, one of the fundamental pillars of our security journey. And some of the tips that I've come up with is when we look at the broad level scope on things that we can control within our BU, right? Which means most of us are either in development or in test. What are some of the things that we can work on easily? And that kind of gives us a lot of credits for free, but also something that's tied into our day job. So we don't have to go and stretch out and do something completely orthogonal, right? So overall, the three main ideas under Forge is, the first one is you build a security tool or process. And this is really, really straightforward. So it looks complicated, but what it really implies is that you can make an impact no matter what function you serve. It all starts with learning. So once you start learning, then you can create something. Like, let's say you create a tool as simple as a scrubber that goes in and it polls for CFDs, right? CFDs on any of the security areas. That basically gives you credit for building a security tool or a process. Or you can set up a meeting, like a weekly meeting with your peers or friends or teammates and say, okay, let's talk about what do we want to do differently with regards to customer found defects on security. So the main idea is be curious, ask questions, and as Vanita said, right, be the eyes and ears of the BU. When it comes to building that tool, expanding the focus, now you start walking towards building partnerships, right, to advance security. This is where it becomes a little bit more formal, and it could involve setting up a tech forum or volunteering to review documentation, reviewing security-related CFDs, participating actively in test plan reviews, all with the intent of improving the security posture of that product, that feature, that test plan, whatever it takes, right? So there could be two parts to it. One is reactive, which is just the CFD review, but the proactive piece is you're engaging and helping with the CIAM backlog. So I think that's one area I want to touch upon, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about this in the next slide. But essentially, these are external and internal security vulnerabilities. So there's like an alert that's sent out to a broader alias, and then all of the security leads for a given release are notified to say, hey guys, go and open DDTS because these are the well-known vulnerabilities or recently discovered by third-party researchers or whatever the case might be. Problem with this approach is that when we look at Cisco overall, we have a backlog of CIAM bugs in the thousands, in the many, many thousands. And if you were to look at, let's say, XR by itself, we would have a lot of backlog that we can easily go in, maybe set up a forum or a partnership, go through like half a day of, I would say, a bug blitz, and look at some of these bugs and see which ones are the low-hanging fruit. And thereby, you're going to get credit for actually advancing security through a partnership. And the third one is creating a security community. I think this is all part and parcel, and it kind of builds onto the first two bullets. What you're really doing is you're creating that focus group. And within that focus group, you're advancing the learning across the board for everyone. You're increasing your focus, you're forming that team, you're defining your objectives, you're meeting regularly, and you're making a difference. And every time you meet, that 1 hour of meeting where you actually review some of these things, that gives you a credit for creating a security community under the Forge pillar. So again, as you can see, it becomes really easy to accumulate these credits. Now, the one thing that is related to the CIAM is these are like the third-party vulnerabilities, right? Any third-party vulnerability is going to become a product vulnerability if you don't fix it, right? So something was known, we built a line card, or we implemented a feature, and we never tested it for that particular vulnerability. It's going to carry over into our code, and the end customers are going to get exposed, right? So the whole point of this internal alert manager is to notify for third-party software threats. And what the opportunity for us is that out of all these thousands of uninvestigated alerts, we can actually make a difference. So if Cisco-wide, if it's 2%, I'm thinking maybe in XR we are a little bit better. But if there's thousands and thousands of these bugs which are unaddressed, I think in XR, even for our service provider BU, we probably would be a little bit better, but not a whole lot better. So that gives us an opportunity. So there's a lot of, I would say, information in this TPSD, third-party software digitization tool. You can go there, you can actually research some of that. A lot of you have already worked on Corona, so you know how that works. So I think overall with these tools, we can really build and solidify our CSTL, right? CSTL, that's part and parcel, that's basic tenet of our development process. We all comply with CSTL. The next pillar is teaching and learning. So I emphasize the word learning because teaching is I think very important, but it's not that intuitive. So a lot of you would probably sit there or attend a session or go and look at a video on demand or something, and that's all based on learning. Or you could take a course and that's learning. But teaching, I think it takes guts, but it also takes a lot of preparation. And sometimes the way I'd approach it is that if there's something that I don't know, I'm going to research that, and then I'm going to get together with a few like-minded friendlies, and I would say, okay, you know what? I'm going to present to you like a TED Talk. And that way I teach myself, and then I teach others, and that way we propagate learning. So overall, some really easy steps. The first one, which is the most obvious, take a course, achieve a certification, right? This could be any security-related certification. If you want to go and explore like AWS security, you can do that. If you want to look at like the ISSC or whatever, you can do that. Or if you want to do a CCNP or CCIP type of security, yeah, all of those are giving you certification, which is extremely beneficial for your career because it goes on your resume, it kind of builds your credentials. So again, there's a lot of incentives in that, and you get credit for it within the belt advancement. But it takes guts to learn something, and then you go and you mentor another person to advance security, which means look within your team and find opportunities to mentor people. Like let's say you have new hires or juniors that you can go and mentor and teach in turn. And that way you learn, you teach, and you basically increase each other's knowledge on security. The most important thing here would be that you participate in tech talks, you read blogs, you attempt to write blogs, provide insights, share feedback openly, and that way we all propagate the security learning. The last, I would say, sub-bullet to this pillar is delivering a security-related presentation. So again, this I think is a little bit tricky because it does require not just the knowledge, the confidence, but also the luck factor. So there's various forums for this. Some of us have been lucky to go to Cisco Live, and we have presented various topics. Some of us have actually been able to go and talk about security in these forums. But there's a really good opportunity that happens, I would say, twice a year, and it happens across 3 geographies, which is the security conference, right? So I know that there was a SecCon that happened in India, like the APJC one, and then there's one that's going to happen in EMEA, and then one that happens in North America. So find opportunities for that because they usually send out emails and they talk about, hey, if you have something to present, here's the slot and present your idea. And if you're approved, then you'd be able to present. And it's all done remotely, so no travel is involved. But usually, if you have a credible idea, they're going to give you a slot. And the slot can be as little as a 30-minute slot to talk about some innovation, some aspect, something that you did to advance security within Cisco. So overall, I mean, these are some of the key themes that I wanted to talk about. So I've put everything on the same slide, but it's basically not a sum of everything. It's a little bit of mix of everything, right? So security learning on your calendar means be aware of security. Like every week, allocate some time for security learning. You read the blogs, and when you click the when you get the slides, you click it. It's going to hyperlink you to the security blogs in Cisco. You can also spend some time learning about PCERT and complete the training based on your job function. So they have different types of trainings, one for QA, one for development, one for SE. So again, for us in development, there's very specific learnings that PCERT has put together, and you get credit for that. All of the security conference within Cisco, they're all archived. You would find tons and tons of material, video on demand, from 30-minute sessions to 2-hour sessions that you can budget for, and you all get credit for those. So 1 credit for every hour spent on that. So again, from video on demand, one really good, I would say, source of information that I use myself and I continue to use is the Cisco Live on-demand content. You can just go into a ciscolive.com, and then once you register, log in using your CCO credentials, just search for a keyword for security or cloud security or InfoSec or something, and you're going to see tons and tons of options there, and every presentation has an archived video on demand or just the slides. So it really depends on how you want to pursue that. If you have time, watch the video. If you just want to scan through the slides, that's fine as well. And lastly, I mean, there's a free course. It's called PCERT Engineering Bootcamp. This is one course that I would highly recommend to anybody in QA, in test, because this is where PCERT has spent a lot of time to develop something which is specifically meant for our test community. And it basically walks you through a preset scenario, but then you learn those lessons and then you apply them into your regular testing. Whatever product or feature that you're working on, you can import those learnings and then you can apply it to your product or feature and thereby improve the quality and security posture of that product. It's a really good course. It gives you 40 credits right away. So you can budget that time, and once you register, it's completely free and you can take your sweet time on it. Like there's no timelines for it to finish. You can start today and finish in a month. That's perfectly fine. And then lastly, Security TED Talk. This I think is something that I pursued myself, which is you read a blog, you learn something, and then you get together with a few friends over coffee or virtually these days, and you just talk about stuff for like 5 or 10 minutes. Yes, you will get credit for it, but it's also going to advance the learning of yourself as well as your colleagues. Here's just a snapshot. So once you click the blogs link, you're basically going to come to this page, and it's got tons of archived blogs, and there's something for everyone. So if you're more into cloud security or product security or just general concepts, everything is there. When we look at security as a journey, there's a few things, right? So obviously everybody's following the belt advancement. So there's a lot of modules that they have updated. I know the white belt content was recently updated, so it's completely refreshed. But then there's a lot more resources available within this training framework as well, which is white belt resources and green belt resources. So they've archived a few really good trainings, really relevant trainings to help you get started if you're still thinking about it. The third pillar is research. And this is, I think, a little bit interesting, and it basically resonates with anybody who's more, I would say, in development, because that's your basic bread and butter, right? So you do research for a living, and then you write good features, right? So the whole point of research is you pick an area. In my case, I picked PCERT. So I basically attached myself to the PCERT team, and I started helping them figure things out. Like when they would see something, hey, is this bug applicable to my release? So yeah, obviously I'd reach out to some development friends. Over time, I gained the expertise to actually help them figure things out at the first level and then punt it to my development friends for the second level. So that basically gave me credit for security issue analysis. The thing that I would help them usually was, what requires a SMU and, where the fix is going to go, who's running what and stuff. So it all starts to build, and then you start understanding how service provider networks are running, what are the implications of security, and really, really builds your confidence as well as your knowledge level. The security issue analysis is one part. Participation in a security committee, and you'd notice that this is really, really similar to the topic that we covered under Forge. So the point is that if you have set up that community where you're spending some time to do some research or you're teaching each other, that basically gives you credit in two different pillars, research as well as Forge. And the last one, I think, which is a given to our development friends, is the design and develop of new security features. If you're doing something like a major feature, you can basically get credit for that. And I know that there's people like within Cisco, not in our BU, but in other BUs, who spent basically, I would say, 3 or 4 months working on a feature, and then they put 3 or 4 months times 40 hours a week times number of weeks, and that's what they got credited for. So just by doing one feature. One example that I can think of is, which is very relevant to SP Access, is that disk zeroization on access platforms, right? So this is something that we're working on. There's a lot of use cases for it. A number of you have been involved in those design discussions, and that's an example of a feature that you can do. That's all part of the research. And that also means that anybody who's on the test side, they can also contribute to this, and they're also contributing to the design because they are bringing customer requirements and customer use cases back to development just so that our overall design docs and functional specs are much more improved, right? So that kind of gives you free credit for that. And the last pillar, which is implement, this I think is very intuitive. This kind of flows together because a lot of folks in the test organization, I think this is more intuitive for them because this is where they're writing a test plan. So it could be testing a security feature, writing a new test case, developing a new test methodology, writing a new test plan. And the whole point is you're thinking like a hacker, like an ethical hacker. So your whole objective is, hey, I spent like 80% of my time doing compliance testing, making sure the feature is working. I'm going to spend 20% of my time trying to break the feature and see what happens. So you're thinking like a hacker, an ethical hacker, and you're trying to break the box. So you're brainstorming and creating conditions that you're testing so that it improves the overall security profile of your product, right? So you can get some lessons learned from recent research. You can look at internally found defects, customer found defects. Those are usually good yardsticks for figuring out how secure the product is. And then you can read a blog for that particular topic or application or use case, and then extract some learnings from it and say, hey, you know what? If I really tested it this way, maybe I can figure something out, and you test it and you find more bugs that improves the security posture of your product. CSTL process, I think that kind of covers everybody on this call, development and test. This is a no-brainer because this is where we have to put our security hat on, right? We have to develop, write code, test code. Everything is done with security. You know, that's the bottom line. And the last one is security strategy. This, I think, is kind of a be-all, end-all, overarching, I would say, pillar, because this is where it starts with you being engaged, finding your niche, documenting and presenting your ideas, talking to customers, and the customers could be internal customers like a systems engineer or an account manager, or it could be somebody in the escalations team or system test team. So you're basically talking to your peers, and thereby you're improving your, first of all, your security knowledge, but then you're improving your test plans, you're completing review of security CFPs, you're figuring out corrective actions, you're working actively to reduce the CIAM third-party vulnerabilities in the product, thereby improving the security posture of your product. So again, at the end of the day, all these four pillars, I mean, you can't really complete that security story unless you touch all of these pillars, right? So between forge, teach, implement, all of these you have to touch, right? But at the end of the day, you can see that it's not that complicated. Once you start going, you can start it to slice and dice your efforts between any of these pillars. And whatever work you do, you get credit for it. So I would very much want to see you guys really up the ante and really shoot for belt advancement before this year is done. And trust me, it's not that difficult. So research, implement, teach, learn, and forge, all of this, right? We're here to help. Any tips that I can provide, please ping me, find me, let me know. But I think you guys have a lot of content to go through. And again, if you find anything innovative, please go ahead and share it. We do have a WebEx team page as well. So if you have any good ideas or if you find something interesting, please subscribe to our WebEx Teams page and just share those ideas so everybody can benefit from it. That's it.
Thank you, Osman. Folks, any question? We are right on time. Please feel free to ask if there is any question. Thanks a lot to Osman and Vanita. Very informative session. At least I was not aware about all these things, many of such things which are covered here. All these content slides and this recording will be available on Joy of Learning portal by tomorrow end of the day.
Thank you. Thanks, Akhilesh.
Yeah.
Osman's Ninja page has a lot of info, even Subhu's one. Those are the pointers I had shared on WebEx team also. Please have a look. That itself tells how to proceed on these four categories and a good point to start on the learning journey.
Sure, we will give those pointers also over the portal so that people can refer those. Yeah,
I'll ping that.
sure. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.
Right. Thanks, folks. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.